Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are live in a sold-out coffee shop of Northland Dairy something or other. The dairy place.
Northland Restaurant and Dairy Bar.
Northland Restaurant and Dairy Bar. Good morning, Yang Gang. We are 25 seconds in. We got one person on. It's probably Mama Yang Gang. Nope. Good morning. Good morning. What's up, Yang Gang? Thanks for tuning in bright and early. Got 4 people on the live stream so far. Those 4 people. Look, yes, you are Blom. First person. Very cool. That means you had your bell dinged. So we appreciate you. Tiffany, good morning. Good morning, Yang Gang. Y'all make sure you tweet this out. Share it out. Facebook. Grab your grandma. We're at a dairy place, dairy restaurant. What's it called? Northland. Northland? Northland.
Restaurant and Dairy Bar.
It's in the description. It's in the location. So, good morning, Yang Gang. There ain't nobody here yet. We got here with Steve. He's starting to show.
I didn't know you guys didn't call me.
The grass. I sense the grass rooting. That's great.
Well, the guy from Freiburg came up with
Dan Dyer. Yeah, he's great. But yeah, we were able to.
So we are waiting for people to get here. We just got here.
Is he here yet?
Not yet.
Welcome, Laid Back Entertainment.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure Mama Yang Gang and Little Yang Gang were not feeling it this morning. Mostly Little Yang Gang. So now we got some people starting to show up, y'all. So this event is supposed to take place from, I believe, 11-ish
11 to 12:30.
to 12:30. Thank you, leader of the Vermont Facebook group, Yang Gang, Corey. So, you want to say hi to the Yang Gang? You want to tell the Yang Gang in Vermont anything
I don't know.
about us signing up?
Oh, signing up to get signatures and start doing it November 1st.
November 1st. So if y'all are in the Vermont area, make sure that you go to the Vermont Yang Gang page or VT Yang Gang.
Yes.
And we are going to start collecting signatures on November 1st to get Andrew Yang on the ballot in Vermont.
But they have to be registered voters.
Have to be registered voters. Can't be non-registered non-voters. So get registered. In Vermont, it's uber easy, y'all. Let me turn this camera around so I can talk to y'all. Or I can talk to myself. See, I see myself in the thing, so I feel like I'm talking to somebody. In Vermont, it's very easy to get registered to vote. All you have to do is go online and fill out the little thing on there. Bam, done. So, Hillary to Russell and the fam. What? Yang 2020. We can get on with Yang 2020 for sure.
Yeah, who was who at that point?
Listen, y'all. There's 25 of you watching right now. And, okay, 26. I need to tell all 26 of you something. Listen, we have got to, I know this, it sounds like proselytizing or whatever, take it how you want to. Y'all, we're starting to hit a brick wall in the Yang Gang. And it's something that I've noticed. And I feel like we're starting to get a little bit comfortable. And now is the time when we can't get comfortable, y'all. We have to be telling everybody that we come across about Andrew Yang, his policies, educating them, and trying to get them into the Yang Gang. Because what happened was after the last couple debates, it's almost like we blew up a little bit, and it's like we got comfortable. And that's something that we cannot afford to do. Because if we get comfortable, I promise you, we will lose the primaries. we ain't gonna face Donald Trump unless we get through the primaries. And that means New Hampshire, South Carolina. Listen, I got nothing but love for the Yang Gang. Nothing but love. But if all you're doing is Yang Gang hanging, then you ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing nothing. You need to get out there in the streets, and you need to start talking to people, and you need to start yanging people on an exponential scale. Because if we get comfortable, we're done. We're done. And it was all a nice dream, and it was a great thing to think about, and everybody got to feel Yang Gang love for a little bit, and then it's over. I can't do that, y'all. I put my entire family on the line for this vision, for the Yang Gang, for the ideals that we stand for. And I'm not gonna let y'all down. Y'all don't let me down either. Y'all, we got to keep telling people, but we got to keep pushing. Because right now we're hitting this brick wall. We're hitting this brick wall, and we can't afford to do that. We got to keep pushing. We got to make sure that we get Andrew through these primaries. It's the only way. He's already said he's not running as an independent. And I sure can't convince him to run as an independent. If I could, I would. You know, so if it's going to be, it's up to us. It's up to me. It's up to you. It's up to every Yang Gang that's watching this. Y'all, we got to get outside of our bubble. There's this dude, Shaving with Tully. He was talking about this, and he's spot on. And I saw that he was getting a lot of flack for it, too. He feels the same way. He feels like we're almost like we're in a sounding room. Okay? And it's like the only people that are hearing us talk. And sass, that's fine. I understand that. But what we all have to understand is the only way that we're going to communicate with anybody else who's not Yang Gang is to get outside of our bubble. We have to. We got to talk to Elizabeth Warren people. We got to talk to Joe Biden people. We got to talk to Donald Trump people. We got to talk to... We all came from somewhere else. There was no Andrew Yang group. Okay? There was no we support Yang people. We all came from somewhere. And we all came from somewhere else because Andrew Yang makes sense. And because of that, you can take that now to other people in other parties and other groups. And one group that we got to get out, y'all, we got to get out the broke folk vote. Because if it's true that 50% of the people can't afford a $500 bill, if it happens, that's something that crosses party lines. Okay? I don't care whether you're Democrat, Independent, Republican, black, white, gay, straight. It don't matter if you're Baptist, Pentecostal. It don't matter. The broke folk vote crosses party lines. That's something that we can all get on board with. So get out the broke folk vote. And a lot of the broke folk vote don't vote. But they will vote for that $1,000. I promise you that. And the key, I feel like, is to like get across this idea that, you know, one thing that the broke folk vote like, right, is getting that income tax check back every year. Because that's like this moment in time where we have a little bit of extra money where we might be able to do something. So we get all excited when the income tax check comes back. Well, it's almost like getting an income tax check back every single month. $1,000, $1,000, $1,000. I'm telling you, the broke folk vote will get on board with that. So y'all make sure that you communicate that vision. We got to get people registered to vote. New Hampshire, you have until tomorrow, if you are a registered Republican, to register as a Democrat to vote in the primaries. Get it done. If you're a Republican, former Trumpers, y'all out in New Hampshire, get registered today. Because tomorrow's the deadline. We don't like to be around the deadline. So I'm going to turn this camera around and let y'all look for a minute. Let y'all see all the beautiful people filing in. All right. We're starting to get some people here now.
I mean, that's what happens, like, we were like, let's do this now before the
Yeah, look at this. We got the live stream going right there. That is hilarious.
I'm watching your comments.
Comment section. Light the comment section up. That's great. Across the way. Thank you, Tortuga. I'm glad you tuned into the live stream last night. Yo, did y'all see that guy last night? Y'all, I thought we was about to have a moment. I'm telling you. Because I saw... Okay, check this out. I don't know if y'all saw that live stream last night. But there was this group of dudes and this chick. And they were sitting in the back. And I noticed that the one dude from the party, he had gotten up earlier. And he had asked Andrew Yang a question. And the way he asked it was all snot. You know, they were back there drinking and everything. And he asked it all snide. Well, like, I had the camera on Andrew, but I watched that dude go back to that party. And they were all back there chirping and you know.
Oh, good.
And then I noticed later on, the dude, that last dude, he got up and he asked the opioid question about the doctors and stuff. And he was being all surly about it too. You could tell he'd been drinking. And then if y'all watched at the end of that live stream last night, that dude, like when Andrew Yang called for selfies, he came like straight, like it was pretty aggressive the way he was walking. And so I circled around the back because I thought if anything's about to pop off, this phone is going down and I'm gonna dog this dude. I'm telling you, I will protect Andrew Yang with everything I got. That man is way too important for this country. Luckily, Andrew being Andrew, this guy goes up to Andrew, and I got it on, and y'all see it on the live stream. And he kind of you know starts invading Andrew's space a little bit, you know, kind of almost like flexing a little bit. Cause you know if you watch people enough, you can tell like microaggression things. So Andrew being Andrew, he like completely turns it on him, and he's got this dude smiling and nodding and just being, you know. But I just, you know, it was kind of sketchy there for a moment, and I just wanted to make sure that I was ready just in case something crazy happened with that dude.
Sure.
You gonna say hi to the Yang gang?
It's okay. I gotta stay on this side of the camera.
Okay, we can make sure that happens.
Yeah, we photographers are all the same way. We like run when there's a camera.
Isn't that weird?
Well, we just have
You like to be on that side of it. I
Yeah, we
understand.
just, it's like reflex.
It is around 1:50.
So who are you a photographer for? You don't mind?
We're Andrew Yang.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm with the campaign.
Cool
We
deal.
forget it's still early.
Well, you'll probably see
I've
us
seen
around a
you in
lot.
a couple, yeah, I'm only coming in for like 3 days this time to capture some images on this trip.
Right.
So I did see you in the Rebel Still coffee shop yesterday.
Yeah, our YouTube channel, we go to a lot of Andrew Yang events. We basically dedicated ourselves to making sure that he gets to be president.
That's so cool. What's your YouTube called?
Grassroots Yang.
Oh, nice. I like that. You have a hashtag and hashtag.
Yeah, if you just go to YouTube and type in Grassroots Yang.
Do you have a lot of followers?
We're almost at 8,000.
Wow, that's impressive.
Almost at 8,000. We should be at 8,000 before the week's out, for sure.
Let me get a portrait of you. Just a quick
Sure,
picture.
absolutely. Yes.
Just as a funny life. There you go.
Oh, Lord. Make sure it's a good picture.
Let's get a couple more.
She said, let's get a couple more. That one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so you always videotape with that?
Yeah.
It's live streaming.
Live.
And then, right now?
It's live streaming right now.
Probably just.
Around here,
Last time I was here for
I don't think they can see you.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
spent like 20 minutes ready.
No, you're not on camera.
Okay.
But,
That's good.
just like this time, can't do
Oh, yeah. I think in politicians
I'm just
have
shorter than you.
20 minutes
so
range.
can you a little bit?
10 minutes early.
Yeah, you gotta build up the suspense.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
I like that you got the scarf too.
I know, right? Signed by Andrew. For sure. So it's signed somewhere. One of them spots. All right, y'all make sure to share this live stream out. Thank you for all y'all that are here. 70 people so far. That's good.
I hit Twitter.
Don't you love how good the phones are these days?
I do. I do love how good they are.
It's just so convenient.
It is very much convenient. Yes, sir. Steve Marchand is in the house. He's Mr. New York or New Hampshire politics himself. You know we will, Yang Gang. We'll definitely keep you in the loop.
Oh, yeah. She's here last week, right? In this room?
Crowd's starting to pick up a little bit in here. Steve was saying, yeah, I got the password. A brawl breakout with rival supporters where? Oh, you know what? Look, Yang Gang, I'm gonna tell y'all something. If it does come down to Andrew Yang of Math versus MAGA, and for all the marbles, I'm telling you, y'all better expect some craziness to happen. And it won't be started by the Yang Gang, although there might be people, you know, that get put in that, you know how it is, politics, people paying people to be somewhere that they're not supposed to be. What's behind the outro? Anyway, let me finish this thought first before I go on to that one. But if it comes down to Math versus MAGA, you're gonna see MAGA start acting like MAGA. Because the only MAGA people that are gonna be left are the ones who are gonna feel that their way of life is being threatened. Because logic says that if you dig into the numbers and you do the math, you're gonna come over to Andrew Yang. I mean, you can't dig into his policies and not be swayed, which is exactly why I'm over here. And as time passes, more people are going to come over. More people are coming over from Trump all the time. And they're coming over from Elizabeth Warren. And they're coming over. But listen, if it comes down to Math versus MAGA, well, it might get rough before we win this election. You know, it's just, yeah, let me go back to that comment. Oh, what's up with the yummy, yummy, yummy? I can let Mama explain that. Since she's over there and she can type.
There you go.
What do I think about Andrew's ad senior advisor, Tad Devine? I think that if you got a name like Tad Devine, it don't matter what the fuck I say. That's just my opinion. Your name is Tad Devine? Sounds like a, never mind. I like the name. Okay, Zeph and I was playing with a voice changer app on the phone. There we go. Little Yang Gang had a voice changer app. That's where we got the yummy, yummy, yummy. He was Bernie's former advisor. Well, I mean, that's great. I don't know. As long as he's not outdated like Bernie, I don't care. I haven't actually met Tad Devine, so I don't know. I can't, I would hate to say, you know, whatever. My name is Tad Devine. It's a great name. I'm gonna turn this around so I don't act foolish. So y'all get me on this camera and I start hamming it up. I can't help it. Creative differences. Well, imagine having creative differences with Bernie Sanders. Get off my lawn. Bernie is definitely the get off my lawn guy. And we love Bernie. Get well, Bernie. Stay well. Val Venus's bro. Yes, exactly. Val Venus. That guy. Tad Devine and Val Venus. That's great. I don't know if we will be. Let me turn this back around. Okay, so I was talking to Steve Marchand before just a little bit ago.
Yeah, I knew that. You're not gonna hold that against me. Are you left the paper in there?
And we're back. So I was talking to Steve Marchand a little bit ago, and he was telling me that this that this was the one event on the thing that we weren't sure like how it was gonna go with the people here or whatever. Grassroots Yang Gang live streams, there ain't no telling what y'all gonna see. So anyway, so we're just kind of waiting to see how many people might show up. I mean, they're already looking at me crazy because I'm talking to a phone. But so glad to see the 91 people here. Y'all like, share, subscribe, ding that bell. Don't let that person touch Yang. No, ain't nobody touching Andrew on my watch. Not while I'm here. Y'all want to see me redneck?
That man forced it.
That man forced it. Yeah, he tried to. He about got forced. Nah, I don't know who you are, dude. You might tune into this channel. You might be a fan. We love you. Rod Bender, Tad Divine, Val Venus.
She never touched your Yang.
Just never touch your Yang in public. Not touching my Yang in public. Okay, look, y'all, get off of there. Y'all can quit with that nonsense. Y'all gonna make me laugh. I'm staying it. Sounding all dirty. Russell, am I going to GA debate with us other YouTubers? Who are you, McAdee? Do I know you? Us other YouTuber? Dude? Do I know you by some other name? So, how many of y'all tweeted this out already?
Me?
Okay, well, that's one. Can we get some more tweets? Let's see if I can get this camera. All right, we got some.
He's coming.
Andrew's out there? Andrew has arrived. To what? Get out of here with that. You're going to timeout. I don't even know what you're just saying right now. Get the hell out of here. Not on my watch. Mama Yang Gang, man, that chat.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so,
Yeah, right about here, something like that. Yeah.
I have transition lenses.
Oh,
that's
so dark.
that's cool, that's cool, that's cool.
There we go.
Well, people are still arriving, first of all, Tomcat. And if you're just tuning in, if you are just tuning in, this was the one event of the week that there was some uncertainty about because there's never been an event here. This is one of the smallest towns in New Hampshire, okay? Very, very small population. So, that being said, anybody that we actually get in here is a win for us. Because, get out of here. I'd use it on this channel. Man, listen. You know what? Okay. Now y'all see, y'all starting to piss me off. Not y'all, Yang Gang. Y'all with these stupid ass comments in the chat. Man, keep your racist shit out of here. Man, we are one race right here in the Yang Gang, bro. We are the human race. And if you can't get on fucking board with that, get the hell out of here. That's stupid shit. Y'all make me so damn mad with that dumb shit. Y'all are the reason we got problems in this country. Trying to keep everybody fucking divided and shit. Go do your job somewhere else. Get the hell off of my channel.
Going well beyond your Hampshire.
I'm not focusing on the negatives, man. I can't stand that shit, man. And you will get a piece of my mind, I promise you. If you come on my channel with that dumb shit, oh, get my blood boiling this morning. That's right, get me woke. Oh, they can't steal my joy. There's my joy. My joy just came in right there. Andrew. All right, Mama Yang Gang, thanks for keeping me on point. You better pay attention, Sass. Now you gotta rewind.
You were here early.
This is going to be a very informal setting for Andrew Yang. So, thank you, Shay. I appreciate it. I hope I said that name right. Thank you so much. I don't even know what you just said there, bro. All I know is we just one people, man. I don't care. I just want to love everybody. So, this being an informal setting, we probably might actually be able to get a little bit of time playing.
Yes. Oh my God. And my gosh, so I had to go see it until very much. It stood between the seats. And I couldn't sit there. Usually,
What's the back? Make America think carbon. Okay. All the rules are on the word. Thanks for being here.
I'm glad you like it. I like what we have to do. I'm good to see you, man. I did read the New York Times article.
All right. And saying hi to a few more people.
You said you'd give me.
Let me,
You said that.
let me take a quick
My
second. I know a
sister-in-law.
lot of you. Some of
Gang
you.
the whole house.
What time's article? How many of you seen Andrew?
New York Times. Yes, we were in the New York Times yesterday morning.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Paul, you saw Andrew last week, right?
Yeah, I heard you showing that.
I wanted, this is one chance, I want to warm it up real quick. Back in January, we got coffee and hit it off, and then stayed in touch. And a few months later, we did a couple of days of traveling in northern New Hampshire. That was, I think, wow. Yeah. We started in Plymouth, we made it all the way up to West Stewartstown, eventually back down to Conway, and then back up towards this part of Coas. And at the end of that trip, I realized I had found the person that should be president. Look at that. I mean, how often do you get that? And so much has happened since then. Up to 4th place in some national polls. The fundraising, 3.5, almost 4 times more than the previous quarter. We're going to do even better than that in the 4th quarter. Getting closer and closer to the middle of the debate stage every month. And by the way, making it with room to spare now. Every month on these debate stages. And a lot of people with a lot of titles and a lot of experience and a lot of name ID and a lot of money are not getting to that place. And one thing that I believe very strongly, I know this part of the state well. Some of you that know me, my aunt's a retired dairy farmer up in Pittsburgh. My grandpa, who's now deceased, is in West Stewartstown. My aunt in Colebrook. We're the snowbirds from Manchester. The rest of us are either up in Quebec or in the northernmost parts of this county. It's an important part of the state. It's a special part of the state. And it's part of the reason why I feel like it's important on this campaign to take some time and to visit. And some of you know that we were up in Whitefield less than 2 weeks ago, here in Berlin today. What is happening in the Midwest and is decimating the economy in other parts of the country. A lot of folks here know what that's like already, from a generation ago. And so you may have a unique appreciation for Andrew's message, his solutions, and the unique perspective he has. You know, the opposite of an outsider who's creating a lot of problems these days is not an insider. It's an outsider who solves problems. That's what the country's looking for. And I feel very strongly that in Andrew, we've got the person that provides the perfect match, not just to win the election next November, but to make America the best it's ever been, starting in 2021. So thank you all for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the next president of the United States, Andrew Yang.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. It's fantastic to be here. I want to take your questions more than talk at you, because we should take advantage of the fact that it's a small group. But I want to share a little bit about what brought me to you all today, to run for president. Certainly, I never thought I'd run for president. My parents never thought like, oh, you're gonna be president someday. They immigrated to this country in the 60s. They met as graduate students in California. I was born in upstate New York in a town called Schenectady. I went to high school here in New Hampshire at Phillips Exeter. Graduated in '92. Spent some time, 5 unhappy months as a lawyer. And then left to start a business that did not work out, had a mini rise and maximum fall. But I worked in business for another 10 years and became the head of an education company that grew to become #1 in the United States and was bought by a bigger company. Now, during that time, it was the aftermath of the financial crisis. I cannot believe the financial crisis was 11 years ago or so, 2008. You were still in this part of the state. I'm sure you felt its effects just like everyone else. And I thought I had a front row seat as to why the financial crisis had happened. It was because all of these wannabe whiz kids I'd gone to Exeter and Brown and Columbia with had gone to Wall Street and come up with these exotic financial instruments that had crashed the economy. And so this is where my path took a very different turn. I had left my job and I started a nonprofit called Venture for America to help start businesses and create jobs in places like Detroit, Cleveland, Providence, Baltimore, St. Louis, Birmingham, and cities around the country. And it was there that I saw the aftermath of the decimation of manufacturing jobs in many of these communities. Detroit had a peak population of 1.7 million, and now it's at 680,000. So the city is 2/3 empty, and you can see the desolation in pretty much any part of the city. You can put a brave face on it. If you go to certain parts of the city, you can say, oh, look at this block. But then if you just turn your head in this direction, you see the abandoned plants, you see the abandoned houses and neighborhoods. So I was a bit shell-shocked by what I saw in much of the country. I'd grown up in upstate New York and here in New England, so I had not been to the Midwest and the South. I spent 7 years working in these communities. And so I thought I had some insight as to why Donald Trump won in 2016. And I think you share that insight. Donald Trump won in 2016 because we blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs that were based mostly in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, all the swing states you needed to win. New Hampshire lost 30,000 manufacturing jobs a little bit earlier, and many of those jobs were right here in the northern part of the state. And the numbers show very clearly that when these plants close, people lose hope and blue goes to red. That's a direct line in these voting areas between the adoption of industrial automation and the movement towards the Republican Party. I'm sure you all have family members and friends and neighbors who are celebrating Trump's victory. I do too. And one of the problems the Democratic Party has right now is treating Donald Trump like he's the source of all that's gone wrong. He is not. He's a symptom. He's a manifestation. The problems have been building for years. And unfortunately, what happened to the manufacturing jobs is now shifting to other parts of the economy. Have you seen stores closing where you live here in this part of New Hampshire? No. Or in California as well? And it's not just New Hampshire, it's everywhere. Why are 30% of America's stores and malls closing right now?
Amazon.
Amazon's like a giant vacuum sucking up $20 billion in value every year. And how much is Amazon paying in taxes?
Zero.
Yeah, you're like, wow. Yeah, literally it's 20 billion out, 0 back. Most common job in most of the country is working as a retail clerk. The average retail worker is a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. So when her store or mall closes, what is her next move going to be? When you all call the customer service line of a big company, you get the software, you do the same thing I do, which is you go 000 human, to get someone on the line. You all do that, and then you're like, oh, fine, I got a person. In 2 or 3 years, the software is going to sound like this. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It's going to be fast, seamless, efficient. You might not even realize it's software. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work in call centers right now making $14 an hour? How many of you all know a truck driver here in New Hampshire? Driving a truck's the most common job in 29 states, and my friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. They say they're 98% of the way there. You can imagine what that's going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers in this country and the 7 million Americans who work at truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal. I have a unique perspective on these issues because I've spent the better part of 20 years now working in the Midwest and the South, but also interacting with the folks in California and Silicon Valley. I've been raising money from them to try and send it to other parts of the country. You know, if you start a national entrepreneurship organization, which I did, then you think, okay, where am I gonna get the money? It's like, oh, let me go to the successful entrepreneurs in California. So I've hung out with them and said like, hey, don't you wanna give money to Detroit? Don't you wanna give money to Baltimore, to Cleveland? So I have a unique perspective. The economy is like an elephant. We're all touching parts of it. You know the parable of the elephant, the blind man? And you ask, what does the elephant look like? And one of them's like a tree trunk, and then one of them's like it's a snake, one of them's like it's a rope. I think I've actually been touching different parts of the elephant for now 2 decades. So I see how the pieces have come together, and unfortunately we are scapegoating immigrants for issues that immigrants have very little to do with. When you go to a factory in Ohio, you do not find wall-to-wall immigrants. You find wall-to-wall robot arms and machines. The same is true at the Amazon Fulfillment Center. That is now getting rid of all these retail jobs. So, being a smart person, my first move was not to run for president of the United States. My first move was to go to our leaders in DC and say, okay, we're going through the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, the 4th Industrial Revolution. What is the plan? What are we going to do to help our people manage this transition? And what do you think the folks in DC said to me when I asked, what is the plan? Plan, question mark? The 3 major responses I got. Number 1, we cannot talk about this. Number 2, we should study this further. And number 3, we must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. And I said, okay, that last one sounds halfway responsible. But I looked at the studies that evaluated how effective the government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest. And you probably had similar retraining programs here in New Hampshire. I talked to officials here, and I think your programs are actually better than the ones in the Midwest. But what do you think the effectiveness rate was in the Midwest? He said 10%, she said 25%. You guys had it about right. It's 0 to 15%. They were a total dud. Half the workers who lost their jobs in these manufacturing plants in the Midwest never worked again. And of that group, half filed for disability. And then you saw surges in suicides and drug overdoses in these communities to a point that our overall life expectancy as a country has declined for the last 3 years in a row. You want to know the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row? The Spanish flu of 1918, a global pandemic that killed millions. You have to go back 100 years to a point in American history where our life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row. It's declining now because suicides and drug overdoses have reached record highs, in large part because of these economic ills I'm describing. There was a person in DC who said to me, Andrew, none of us is going to do anything about this set of problems because this is not a town of leaders, this is a town of followers. And the only way anyone in DC will do anything about this set of problems is if you create a wave in other parts of the country and bring it crashing down on our heads. And I heard this and I said, I will be back. But the way I was like Arnold, I was like, I'll be back. I didn't actually say that in real life. But I was glad I had someone with me for this speech because it sounded like I made that, it sounded like some kind of movie supervillain speech. It was a DC lobbyist speech. Turns out they're cousins, same sort of person. So then I said, okay, I get it. I need to create a wave in other parts of the country. And thanks to people like Steve and Christina and other people in this room, I'm now 4th, 5th, or 6th in national polls. My campaign raised $10 million in the 3rd quarter alone in increments of only $30 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. I just got a lot of them. But there's no corporate PAC money. It's all grassroots donations. We are the wave. And the question is, what are we going to do to help point our country in the right direction in 2020? Now, you look around this room and you see, what are there, like 15, 16 people? And that might seem like a modest gathering. But the truth is, we're in a very special place because New Hampshire has incredible power over the future of our country. I did the math, and I'm sorry, I know some of you are from California. Do you know how many Californians each New Hampshire voter is worth? Approximately 1,000. So you look here and you say 16 people, I see 16,000 Californians. That's like a basketball stadium full of Californians. You all have that much power. That's one reason why so many presidential candidates come to you looking for your vote, because each of you is worth your weight in gold. So you can actually doesn't take that many people in New Hampshire just to point the country in a whole new direction. That's one reason why I love it here. This is one of the only places that democracy actually works the way it's intended. Most of the rest of the country looks up and they despair. They see these giant pipes clogged full of millions of dollars of lobbyist cash. And they say, my vote can do nothing to dislodge the money in the pipes. They are generally correct. Their vote can do next to nothing to dislodge the money in the pipes. But your vote can't. If you decide to set the country down a different path in 2020, then that's where you go. You're a little bit used to this. You're a little bit spoiled. It's like, oh, of course we do this. But I have to say, it's very, very unique in the country. I go to the rest of the country, and they recognize, Americans are smart. They recognize that they can't do much about it, but you all can. It's one reason I love campaigning here. So the question is, what are you going to do in 2020? Like, what is the vision? If you've heard anything about me, you've heard something like this. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. Have you all heard that? Excellent. And the first time you heard that, you were like, ha, that's a gimmick. That will never happen. That's too good to be true. But this is not my idea. This is a deeply American idea from the country's founding. Thomas Paine was for it. The beginning of the country called it the citizen's dividend for all Americans. Martin Luther King fought for it in the 1960s, called it the guaranteed minimum income for all Americans, and it is what he was fighting for the day he was assassinated. In 1968, 1,000 economists, including Milton Friedman, endorsed a plan just like this in the 1960s. It was so mainstream, it passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Richard Nixon. It was called the Family Assistance Plan, but it set an income floor for all Americans. And then 11 years later, one state did pass a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that?
Alaska.
And how does Alaska pay for it?
Oil.
And what is the oil of the 21st century?
Data.
Technology.
Data, technology, artificial intelligence, self-driving cars and trucks, software. A study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? So if our data is worth more than oil, where's that money going? It's all going to Facebook, Amazon, Google, and the rest of these mega tech companies that are paying zero or near zero in taxes. When you look up, you're like, what, they're paying zero in taxes? How is that possible? You can look it up. Zero in taxes from Amazon, Netflix, and a lot of the other biggest winners of the 21st century economy. If you want, I can walk you through how they pay no federal taxes. You'd like me to do that? Yeah, of course. I can do that.
Sounds interesting.
All right. So the major,
15,000.
it's not even that complex. All right. So we have a corporate income tax system that says, hey, whatever your profits are, we get a slice. So they say, okay, we hate taxes. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that all of the profits go through Ireland or a tax shelter or haven that sets up a very, very low tax rate. That then they funnel all the earnings through. This is one reason why you look up and you see that a lot of our biggest companies have parked tens of billions of earnings overseas. And if they bring it back to the United States and they get taxed, they never bring it back. That's one way they don't pay taxes. Another way they don't pay taxes, they pay themselves, the executives of the business, in stock options and stock compensation that they can expense against their earnings. And so if they pay themselves more, they were like, hey, we had all these stock bonuses, and it actually reduces earnings. The third big move they make is they look up and they say, hey, we're making some money, we might have to pay taxes, that's unacceptable. So they take the money and they buy other businesses with it. And then they absorb them into their business. This is one reason why Amazon can get up to $1 trillion market cap and pay zero in taxes. Who are the biggest winners from artificial intelligence going to be? These self-same companies. How much of that value are we going to see? None of it. It's just going to continue to deplete our communities progressively, particularly rural areas. They're getting sucked dry right now. And if you have children who grow up in rural communities, they feel like they have to leave if they're going to access certain types of opportunities moving forward. So this is the tide that we have to reverse, essentially. And if you think about it in the bigger context, $1,000 a month for every American adult stopped seeming so dramatic. It actually started seeming necessary and inevitable to make the economy actually work for us in an age where machines will do more and more of the work. In Alaska, they call this the oil check, and they love it. 40 years in, massively popular still. We're gonna call this the tech check, and all of America is going to love it. And then when artificial intelligence leaves the lab and starts hitting our businesses, at least we get a slice, and then the value revolves around us. We can build a trickle-up economy from our people, our families, and our communities up. Particularly because after I'm president, thanks to you all, and you get this dividend, where would you spend the money in real life?
Right in the community.
Yeah.
Like, what is it, like maybe in this establishment, maybe you come and get an extra ice cream cone. Locally, how much of it will stay right here in New Hampshire?
Most of it.
Most of it, not all of it. A little bit of it will float up to the cloud, or maybe you'll take a fun trip somewhere. But most of it will stay right here. It will go to local businesses, it will go to daycare and car repairs you've been putting off, and home repair, and Little League signups, and local nonprofits, arts, culture organizations, all the things that make a community vibrant and worth living in. So this is the trickle-up economy that we must make a reality as quickly as possible. Particularly because right now, the 21st century economy is leading us in the wrong direction. What do I mean by that? GDP is at record highs right now. We all see that in the headlines. Also at record highs in the United States right now. Stress levels, financial anxiety, student loan debt, suicides, drug overdoses, all at record highs. Again, GDP is going up and life expectancy is going down. So which do you listen to? To me, it's very clear, even the inventor of GDP said this is a terrible measurement of national well-being, and we shouldn't use it as that. You can put GDP and corporate profits in the same, essentially in the same category. So if I were to tell you that something was getting better in your community that would actually make you happy to hear, what would it be? If I said GDP went up, you'd be like, that doesn't really mean much to me. But if I were to say this went up, like what would actually make you happier?
Property taxes down.
Employment, income and affordability,
More population.
Property taxes going down.
property taxes going down, a population. How about health and life expectancy, mental health and freedom from substance abuse, clean air and clean water, childhood success rates, maybe demographics and retention, population growth or shrinkage. So these are the things that would actually tell you how you're doing. And believe it or not, we have measurements for most all these things right now. As your president, one of my first steps, it was actually really easy, is to go to the Bureau of Economic Analysis and say, hey, GDP, really old, out of date, kind of useless. So we're going to replace it with a scorecard that includes our mental health, proportion of Americans who can retire in certain circumstances. Just so you know, the $1,000 a month stacks on top of Social Security. We have to create an environment where...
The difference between men's earnings and women's earnings.
Yeah, and this is one reason why the freedom dividend stacking on top of Social Security is so important, because if someone takes a break from the workforce to raise a family, what happens to their Social Security benefits? They go down because they have less work history, they pay less into Social Security. So we're essentially penalizing moms a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's one reason why the freedom dividend stacking on top of Social Security is so vital. I have no desire to live in a country where we have senior citizens working themselves to the bone to the day they die and no one can retire. And that is a circumstance that more and more Americans are finding themselves in. I look at the numbers, I'm a numbers guy. I can see very clearly that millions of Americans will never have will never have adequate retirement savings. Many people, their healthcare costs keep getting ratcheted up and up because healthcare costs only know one direction, and it's up. Because the drug companies, their business model is like, how are we gonna make more money next year? Just like increase prices, 4%. If I'm a private insurance company, how am I gonna make more money next year? Increase prices, 5%. We have to turn it around to work for us. And there's only one group of people that can make it happen, really, in the entire country. It's the voters of New Hampshire, honestly. It's you, really. Again, it's one reason why it's so great being here. So imagine an economy where we have a foundation, a dividend for all Americans of $1,000 a month on top of Social Security. Imagine being able to look at your children or grandchildren and say, great news, you're an American, your country loves you, your country values you, and you'll get $1,000 a month as a right of citizenship. I've run companies and organizations, and there are 3 things you can do with your people. 1, nothing, then eventually they leave. 2, tell them how great they are. Works for a little while, but then eventually they leave. 3, you invest in them, you give them raises, you give them more responsibility. That works. It's the only thing that works. Right now, we're paying lip service to our people, but pretending that society is working for the people. It's not, by the numbers. Our income's been here, and then our costs just keep creeping up and up and up. So this is the vision for a trickle-up economy that we can make a reality together. Donald Trump is our president today, in part because he got some of the problems right. He said he was going to make America great again. Remember that? Of course we remember that. Can't get away from it. What did Hillary say in response? America's already great. And that did not work. We have to acknowledge the depth and severity and reality of the problems, but then we need solutions that will actually improve our lives. What were Donald Trump's solutions? We're going to build a wall, we're going to turn the clock back, we're going to bring the old jobs back. We have to do the opposite of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible for the 21st century. And we have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves, our work, and our value. And I am the ideal man for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math.
That's right.
What does math stand for?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder, that's right. We're gonna get this all, we're gonna focus on the real problems and let America know it's not left, it's not right, it's forward. And that is where we need you to take us in the days ahead. So we'd love to take some questions, since we're such a fun, small group. Yes.
Talk to us about healthcare. How are you going to deal with healthcare?
I'm in the Medicare for All camp, with the caveat that I would not eliminate all private insurers immediately. The goal has to be to show that we can provide a better deal than private insurers and put them out of business progressively. So if we do the job right, private insurance will mostly disappear. The big fiction is that we don't have the money. We're already spending twice as much as other countries on our healthcare to worse results. And you know where that money is going? It's not going to making us healthier. It's going to the drug companies, the device companies, the private insurance companies. There is so much waste in the system, it is staggering. I have a friend who likes numbers just like I do. And she said she has never seen price gouging and profiteering at the level that she sees right now in the drug companies, device companies, and private insurance companies. So we have to break the back of many of these lobbyists, honestly, and rationalize costs, get access up, get costs down, and start focusing on our own care, our own health. And the only way to do that is with a strong government hand. So I'm in the Medicare for All camp without getting rid of private insurance all at once. If we do it right, we're going to get rid of it pretty quickly. Yes?
So,
Is this mine?
piggybacking on,
Yeah.
yes, piggybacking on Medicare for All. Obviously, I'm a senior citizen and I have Medicare. I also worked, I'm one of those moms who didn't work for a while, staying home taking care of 5 kids, and worked in social work. So clearly my, clearly my social security isn't a huge amount. So Medicare, I love the fact that I have Medicare, but Medicare's got a 25% copay, which means, or 20%, whatever it is, which, what? 20% copay, which means that if I didn't have a supplemental insurance plan, and I ended up in a hospital, I'd lose my house and be bankrupt. But I don't have, but then again, most of us that are in my position have, $1,300–1,500 a month in Social Security, and that doesn't necessarily, there's not a lot of wiggle room to pay for those $130 to $300 supplemental plans. Do you have anything to answer to that?
So the first thing is that the freedom dividend would immediately boost your current
Oh, I know,
income by $1,000 a month.
that would make such a difference.
That would make a huge difference. The second thing is you have to try and drive at why the costs keep creeping up. for individual parts of your care. So one of the biggest culprits is prescription drugs. And so we have a plan to try and get prescription drug prices under control. Do you know that drug companies often charge us 2 to 3 to 4 times as much they charge citizens of other countries for the same drugs? Even though in many cases we subsidize the development of the drugs. And then when the US government came out and said, hey, we should negotiate lower prices on behalf of the American people, the drug lobbyists said, no, you can't negotiate lower prices. And the lobbyists are so powerful, they actually managed to cram that through. So, number one, government has to be able to negotiate for lower prices on our behalf. Number two, the prices have to be within international norms. So you have to charge us plus minus 10% of whatever you're charging citizens of other countries. Number three, if you fail at number two, then we can forcibly use the drug license and then manufacture the drugs ourselves at a public facility. So if you're a drug company, do you think that you're going to get your price under control if this is the regime? And the shareholders will scream bloody murder. They'll say, oh, we can't make money this way, blah, blah, blah. But it's all lies. I mean, they're making money off their foreign businesses. They're just making way more money off of us because our government is bought and sold by the lobbyists. So that's one way we can get your supplemental insurance and other costs down, is by actually trying to attack the cost structure. The other thing,
It's a 20% copay that's the kicker.
yeah, the other thing is, like, I hate, like, everyone hears this and feels this. I mean, I have parents who are probably about your age.
Probably.
Yeah, probably about your age, and like, it's wrong that as a country we live in fear of healthcare bills that will, like, get us out of our house, or like bankrupt us, or not make us able to actually leave anything for our kids, or worse yet, all of a sudden, like, the kids are burdened by it. Like, this is not the way it functions in other societies. You should know. It's like, if you go, like, it doesn't become this massive personal financial liability that cascades for generations. I don't think it has to be that way in the United States either. So to me, if you go to the hospital, you should be focused on getting well. And if you have a 20% copay, then it needs to be capped at a certain amount, so that if you wind up incurring expenses above a certain level, then it's not going to make you and your family go bankrupt. Right now, healthcare bills are the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Again, not normal. It does not need to be that way. And one thing I'm excited about is there is so much waste in the system that we have the resources in place. If you were coming to this and we had like a rational cost structure, it would always be a bigger problem. But we have this irrational cost structure that we almost can't help but improve on. It's not going to come out of the backs of families like yours. It's going to come out of the backs of the people who are profiting to the tune of tens of billions of dollars right now.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the ACA?
You know, I think the Affordable Care Act was a step in the right direction, but the mechanics ended up being problematic. They didn't really change the incentive structure appreciably, and it didn't go far enough in some ways. So that's one reason why I'm in favor of Medicare for All as opposed to trying to expand the ACA, because I think that a lot of the incentives within the system need to change.
My experience is that I have my wife's on ACA and I'm on Medicare, but it costs me a lot less money on the Affordable Care Act stuff versus Medicare.
So,
Yeah.
so Medicare costs you less than the ACA stuff.
No.
No,
it's
reverse.
vice versa.
Reverse.
Yeah, Affordable,
Well,
much less,
right?
I mean, based on, because it's income based and that aspect of things, but in the plans of fine. So, I don't know this, I think that, I wouldn't throw away the ACA, I think it needs to be tweeted. But how do you do it? And as for the Medicare aspect of things, I think that this first step probably be lower the qualification age for Medicare down to 62 as to when you can say
Oh,
Social
we
Security.
lower it progressively.
Yeah, I think that's the
my plan
steps
is
to do.
expand Medicare for all is just lower the eligibility age progressively. So like every year, the eligibility age goes down and we absorb more and more of the population.
Yeah, bring it in slowly, not all at once, so it'd be crazy.
Yeah. Yes, there was a point in there that when you talked about the cost structure, well, I'll come back to it.
Yes, will doctors be paid less if under Medicare for all?
It depends upon the nature of the practice right now. Writ large, will some doctors get paid less? Yes. And if you look at the international standards, our doctors right now are getting paid actually much more than is the case in many other societies. Also, the cost of educating a doctor is much higher here than it is in other societies. So we've created this very incentive structure for doctors. I have many doctor friends, and so they show up to med school. A lot of them are like, "Oh, I'm going to be a family doctor," and then they spend time in med school. What happens? We load them up with $200,000 in med school debt, and all of a sudden they're like, instead of being a family doctor, maybe I'll become an anesthesiologist or a dermatologist. Somebody that gets paid more. And then after I become a specialist, well, I'm not going to go to a rural area to specialize in these things because I don't have enough patients. So I'm going to go to an urban area. So you wind up with this massive primary care desert at 30% of the country, where you have to drive for miles and miles to like find a doctor or a specialist. And then when you go to the medical lobby and say, hey, primary care desert in 30% of the country, maybe we could loosen up the licensing requirements so that someone else can see patients in these areas. And what do the doctors say? No, it has to be a doctor. Why do we have state-by-state licensing for the practice of medicine? Does the human body really change that much across state lines? It's like if I just walk across the state line, all of a sudden I have different anatomy. Like, this makes any sense. A lot of that's just to preserve medical revenues, essentially. Like I have a friend who's in telemedicine who said he had to take 50 different licensing tests in order to see patients over the internet. Like, that doesn't strike me as a very good way to deliver care when you have a country that has 30% of. What I'm suggesting is we need to try and change the incentives for doctors themselves, lower their debt burden coming out, but then the upside of being a doctor will still be a very, very good living, but it will be not millions of dollars as it is in some cases right now. In all likelihood, if more of us are covered through Medicare for all. Yes.
And I could talk to you for hours about, I'm a former dislocated worker. I went out when the mills closed down in 2000, it was 1,300 of us when it started. I was a certified Medicare counselor. I can talk to you about all the things I've seen. And I'm a former selectman from the town of Gorham, and I can talk to you about the depopulation and what's happening here to our finance. This was once a city of 25,000, we're down to 10. And that's why I mentioned what the population would be. I can talk to you about all of those things. And maybe sometime I will get a chance to discuss.
I hope so. Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you a question that I never hear anybody ask any other Democratic candidate. And I'm going to assume because you're a math guy, that you're a science guy. So, my question is, how would you use NASA, the space program, and science to improve the lives of Americans?
I love the question, Paul.
Yeah.
The era of Apollo 13, when NASA had armies of scientists and were sending people to the moon, unfortunately has now transitioned to a point where NASA is outsourcing a lot of its exploration and resources to SpaceX and Blue Origin and some of these other companies. I actually visited SpaceX not that long ago, and Elon Musk endorsed me. I don't know if you know who Elon Musk is.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were talking to me about how they just get contracted with NASA to send rockets up. So there's like a blend now, public and private, when it comes to space exploration. There is potential to benefit the lives of the average American through space exploration over time. The immediate benefits are, frankly, and as far as I can tell, a little bit more emotional than material. I was going to share something positive on this side. Some of the technologies that they developed to get us into space do end up having commercial applications here. Similar to the way, you may not know this, but a lot of our car safety stuff came from like race cars, that sort of thing. So they've innovated in certain ways to propel rockets that may end up helping our planes get manufactured differently over time. So there are ways that the technology will redound to our benefit. And then if you go really far in the future, then there might be some genuine benefits from actual resettlement, which is what some of these guys are working on. I know, like to me, it's like, I frankly am more concerned about what's happening on planet Earth, because I'm very confident that more of us will be
I
here.
think it's like Teflon, turns out all the chemicals we don't
And also, for a person who's something of a futurist, if you offered me like a complimentary flight into space, I might pass. I'd be like, like it's all right, like I'm okay on the ground. But certainly some of the things they're working on at SpaceX and the other space exploration companies will end up helping us here on Earth. And this is not quite the same thing, but Elon's working on something called a Hyperloop, where they can launch essentially. It's gonna sound ridiculous. It'll launch pods like in large-scale vacuum tubes underneath the Earth that'll have people in them eventually. So there are people working on things that will hopefully help us here in the real world in like a reasonable time frame. Most of it. I honestly am more concerned about the problems that are coming up with some of these technologies and some of the opportunities right now, honestly. And this is coming from someone who considers himself very optimistic and pro-progress and the rest of it. But the fact is, if you have artificial intelligence software, I spoke to a group of 70 CEOs in New York City, and I asked them, how many of you are looking at having artificial intelligence replace your back office clerical workers? Guess how many hands went up out of 70? All 70. That to me is the concern. It's like, and if you're a CEO of a company, you can be fired if you don't replace those workers with that software. Because right now your incentives are just to maximize the bottom line. This is the reality of the 21st century economy that we should be concerned about. To me, if we can get everyone excited about progress again, that would be an enormous win. But the only way to get there is if we all share in the bounty. And right now the bounty is not really being shared, the bounty is being hoarded. Yeah.
So my question is about the freedom dividend. So you propose giving $1,000 a month to every American, which is obviously very expensive. And the way that you talked about paying for that is through a value-added tax, basically a sales tax of I think 20% on pretty much every purchase. And that's
so 20% is the average European rate. I'm proposing 10%.
sorry.
More heavy on luxury goods and certain other goods, and less on consumer staples.
Okay. That's generally, even at 10%, that's considered to be a pretty regressive way to raise that revenue. So my question is, why do you think that a value-added tax is the right way to raise that revenue, rather than through things like treating capital gains as regular income, raising more?
Which I'm for.
Okay. Raising without marginal tax rate, eliminating
Also
capital
for.
gains. Okay. Eliminating capital gains step up on inheritances.
Yes. Okay.
No further questions.
It's a legit question, even with the caveat that I'm for all of those things. It's based in large part upon my desire to make sure that we share in the progress and the bounty. So you have a system where Amazon's paying zero in taxes, then you have to put a toll in place and say, okay, we deserve some of that value. And then you look around the world and say, how have other countries made sure that they actually share in that value? And over 100 countries have concluded that the most efficient way to do that is to have a value-added tax. And so, not being very smart, I was like, well, if it's worked in 100 other countries, like maybe it would work here too. So then, I like proven mechanisms that have worked. And you're right that in the absence of everything else, if you just put in a value-added tax, then maybe our prices would tick up a little bit. But the goal here is to take all that value and then some more, and put it directly in our hands in the form of a freedom dividend. And you know who's really going to get hit by this VAT? It's going to be the Jeff Bezoses of the world. Jeff Bezos is right now worth $120 billion post-divorce. If we raise the marginal income tax rate to 70%, how much of his $120 billion would we get? Next to nothing. Because Jeff Bezos is not dumb enough to pay himself $10 billion a year. It would just be sitting in the vault in the form of this Amazon stock. But if you put in a value-added tax, then how much of his stuff do we get a year? Well, let's see. We get a slice of every sale through his trillion-dollar business, so that's like hundreds of billions of dollars. And then when he turns around and spends some of his $120 billion on rockets to Mars, which is not made up, he legitimately spends $1 billion a year on rockets to Mars, then we get a slice of that too. Then we get the money coming and going, distributed to all of us, and we win. But you know who else wins? Jeff wins. Because then our society is stronger, our consumer economy is stronger, some of us buy some more stuff at Amazon. And there's actually a virtuous circle that works for everybody. This is one reason why a bunch of the tech CEOs actually support me and endorse this plan. Because they're not like, you know, crazy people. Well, some of them are crazy people, and they're crazy people who do not support me. But the ones who still remember that they're Americans and parents and like, you know, human beings from the Midwest, which some of them are like, hey, if Americans get this money, that's not a bad thing for me. That's a good thing for me because it ends up building a stronger consumer market. The CEO of JP Morgan just came out with a plan that's a lot like my freedom dividend. He called it a negative income tax, which is essentially ensuring a certain income floor for all Americans. This is not that radical an idea. It just seems radical because we've gotten so brainwashed into a mindset of scarcity that somehow we don't have enough money to go around, which is total nonsense. Do you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street?
No.
No, none of us voted for that. Do you remember anyone being concerned about where the money was gonna come from? I don't remember that either. You know, when it was time to bail out Wall Street, we had the money at the ready. We have to now reverse it. Instead of the trickle-down economy, we have to build the trickle-up economy. But yeah, it's a totally legit question. Yeah.
I read somewhere that something like 1 in every 4 voters is an evangelical Christian.
Sounds about right.
Have you thought about the message to address their interest? I mean, obviously their interests are economic, but that's not the way they always think about how they engage with politics. And this is 25% of the vote. Obviously, probably not so much in the Democratic primary, but in general in the country.
So just on a personal level, I was brought up in a secular household, but my wife is Christian. We're raising our boys in the church. Go to church every Sunday at home, which is not that many Sundays now, unfortunately, because I'm running for president. But my time in the church has led me to believe that it's a grave mistake for us to somehow think that being Christian means being a member of a particular party. And then my sense of things is that there are many Christians who'd be very excited about the opportunity to alleviate poverty in our country, which we can do.
But specifically, do you have a message that addresses kind of the set of concerns that are often articulated in those communities, which are a little different than what we hear a lot in the media, and these economic things that are very policy driven?
So I'm happy to say I've met with certain Christian leaders who are very sympathetic to elements of our campaign's message, and they also dislike the fact that the evangelical community has essentially been pushed into one side of the political spectrum. So there are Christian leaders who looked at our campaign and our platform and said, this is the kind of conversation we need to be having within our own community. Now, I'm not suggesting that somehow we're going to change like the bulk of those voters, but I think if you get even any proportion by trying to speak directly to them in some fashion, that could be a huge difference maker. And I don't claim to be the person who's necessarily going to be the messenger as effectively as leaders of that community themselves who've taken a look at our platform and said that this actually makes sense according to their understanding of scripture. You had a thought, Ryan?
Yeah, well, I mean, just coming from, you know, I was a Trump supporter, and we come from, you know, lifelong conservative. But if you want to talk about abortion, you want to lower the abortion rate, let's put some money into the hands of these young mothers who, that's one of the big reasons that they're getting abortions, is because they can't financially support that child. So if we put the freedom dividend into their hands, well, that eliminates a big problem. And you're talking from the Christian side, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to feed the poor. Let's feed the poor. Let's do that. Let's do all these things that we say that we value in our Christian churches. So if we say that we value these things, let's do those things. And that's why I'm here voting for Andrew Yang.
Yeah, he's not alone, I have to say, so it's a beautiful thing that's around the clock on that. This is a fantastic discussion, yes.
You were talking about a sliding age for your Medicare for All, just gradually lowering the age.
Well, that's one of the ways to roll out Medicare for all instead of doing the entire population at once.
So then a lot of people who are younger than us have financial issues, medical bill, insurance, financial issues. Why for you?
Well, there are, I think, I'm actually doing really well with young people, for a variety of reasons. And I think people understand that if you have a Medicare for all, there are different ways to try and roll it out to the entire population, as long as you get it done in a reasonable time frame. I don't think a young person would look up and be like, oh, it's going to be 5 years until Medicare for all covers me, and thus I won't vote for him. You know, I think everyone understands that you can't necessarily just flip it like a light switch.
So what is your plan?
You know, so we're going to come out with an exhaustive plan in the next like week to 10 days or so. I don't want to preempt that, but it's as
Let it be
it's as aggressive
first.
it's as aggressive as it can be. Really first is something else. I'll think of something else I can spill the beans on here. But on that one, I don't want to take away from what's going to be, you know, like a big press release and the rest of it. I have some discipline, you know, not like our current president. I'm sorry?
I like to, I wants to build a wall in Colorado to keep the Mexicans out. And the first thing is let's get our kids into school to learn about geography.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh, yes,
That's fine.
that's what he wanted to do yesterday, is build a wall to keep the Mexicans out of the border of Colorado.
Ah, the walls everywhere.
Enough said on that.
My wife's disabled, she's on Medicare, I'm also on the board of a local hospital and used to run the mental health center. I have mixed feelings about Medicare. I love the single payer system, but I know that Medicare pays below cost and is incredibly bureaucratic in its requirements, which increases the cost of care. Have you thought about how you might reform Medicare to make it a better system, both for the recipient and also for the provider?
There's so much potential there, and you know, appreciate your on-the-ground experience. To me, that's always the most wisdom. The source of the most wisdom is people that have interacted with it the most. So there are at least two components. One, you're talking about the bureaucratic elements, and two, you're talking about the level of compensation or reimbursement. The level of compensation and reimbursement, I believe, is going to be lower than what private insurance, in many cases, is offering. But we can, again, because of the excess in the system, it's not necessarily the case that the current Medicare reimbursement levels have to remain static. Like there may be areas where you end up meeting somewhere in the middle where you boost them for certain things. The bureaucracy is something I'm very passionate about. I have parents who spend time in both Asia and the US. And so sometimes they're in Asia and they get healthcare treatment and services. And they've been blown away by how seamless and patient-friendly it's been, where they literally show up, they get a procedure done, or they get their prescription and they go home. And literally they said to me, they were like, that's it. Like all they did was just like, when you need this, okay, and then they did that, and then they charged them a month copay, and then they sent them home. I'm not a fan of a lot of bureaucracy. I think bureaucracy, not only is it inefficient, but it also ends up creating like these strange incentives where people wind up doing things to serve whatever the process is, rather than what is the truth or what is right for the patient. So if there are ways we can lighten up the bureaucracy, I'm gonna be all for them. I don't wanna overpromise on that level because I know how complex many of these systems are. And if you go and pull one string, often it will affect 3 or 4 things down the line. But most Americans agree with you that if we can streamline the bureaucracy, we should. And the big sense of possibility there are two. One is if we can use technology more efficiently, it would be incredibly helpful. Because right now we're just scratching the surface of what technology can do in a healthcare context. That's not just patient information, it's also diagnostic tools. Where right now artificial intelligence can actually outperform human clinicians on identifying tumors on a radiology film, for example. Our regulations have not caught up to that yet. But if they could, you can actually see a lot more efficiencies in the healthcare space. So that's one thing that I'm excited about, the possibility. The other thing is value-added medicine, which I'm sure you know a lot about. So the biggest issue we have in our healthcare system right now is that it's not actually designed around making us healthier. It's designed around revenue, cost, profitability. We've all seen this. And activity. Like in every healthcare provider's practice, if they do more, they get paid more. If they do less, they get paid less. So then what's the incentive to do more? If you have a clinician like in the Cleveland Clinic where they get paid the same regardless of how much they do, then they start prescribing less, they start performing fewer procedures, and patient outcomes actually improve. It turns out that that activity is not directly correlated to making us healthier in some of these circumstances. A lot of the time also, these doctors are doing more because they don't want to get sued. If you get the malpractice incentive off their backs, then all of a sudden their judgment changes. So here are some ways that we can ease up on the bureaucracy if we change the incentives, move towards value-added medicine where people actually are trying to measure how much healthier we're getting as opposed to how much money they can make from a particular process. Yes?
How do you feel term limits?
I am one of the only candidates who is for term limits for congresspeople of 12 years across the board. Because to me, Washington should not be a place where you go and live for decades and have a career. The goal should be to go there, get some good done, and come home. And if DC becomes your home, then you've probably been there too long.
Yep.
What about the presidency? Have you thought about changing it to 6 years and just one term?
I think there'd be merit to that. And I will say, as your president, I'll be focused on doing my job and solving problems and not on the political repercussions. But one thing I've suggested about the president is that the president should have a lifetime ban on receiving any speaking fees for personal gain. Because it's human nature that if you're in the office and you know that this CEO's company can pay you $250,000 for an hour's work, after you get out of office, then maybe they'll just take it easier on that CEO's company. That's human nature. So what you do is you say, look, president can't make any money from any of these private opportunities ever again. And in return, we give the president a raise. And it would go into effect for the president after me. Because I don't want anyone to think like I'm doing it for the money. I'm definitely not doing it for the money. But we have to make sure the president works for us. And you can only change a culture if you start at the top. So if the president says, hey, guess what? I can't do anything for personal gain after my presidency, then it becomes easier to try and shut the revolving door for other government leaders who go off to industry. Because that revolving door is one of the things that's corrupting our policy. Is that if you work for the government, you get paid a certain amount of money, then you look up and you're like, wait a minute, in 2 years I can make 5 times more from that company, as long as I'm nice to that company. And what do? They're nice to that company, and then 2 years later they go work for it. I have a friend I went to high school with here in New Hampshire. He went to work on Capitol Hill, and he said to me, never be a lobbyist. Fast forward 12 years later, what's he doing for a living? Lobbyist. Because he went there, he got the experience in relationships, and then he looked around and was like, well, what are my opportunities? And then the lobbying industry is like, we will pay you 3 times as much as you used to make if you come here and lobby. And so when he told me what he was doing, I was like, it's okay, man. He was like sheepish. And I was like, it's okay, man. I get it. I get it. Like our system is just that corrupt. So if you're going to change it, you have to start at the top. There are so many problems.
That makes so much sense.
It's very dark. Yes.
So going to what you said about presidents making money off speeches, there was a news story, I think in the past few weeks, about you having given speeches to, I think, Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs or something earlier in your run and getting paid for it, and a bunch of controversy around that. Are you willing to commit that, like, while running for president, you will not continue to take money for speeches?
I don't have anything on my schedule that I'm going to be making any money from, like, that I see, because I'm pretty busy running. I did speak to JP Morgan earlier in my run, frankly, before anyone was like, like paying attention to my run. And I was thrilled to do so, because I got to speak to 100 of these bankers and CEOs, and you know what the slide deck was? It was about how automation is sledging the American workforce, and then we need to evolve and move to another point. And so I knew that those speeches would come to the public, and I actually thought that the public would understand the fact that if I can educate a group of bankers about technology's impact on the workforce, it's probably a good thing. Would I have done that speech for free? Yes. Am I glad they paid me? Yes. Because then I took that money, and what did I do? I gave it to a family in New Hampshire. Which you can, if you look up, that's what I did. I've given now $1,000 a month to 3 different families around the country, and the money was partially funded by JP Morgan. I think they call that Robinhood. right? Yeah, so I would have spoken for free, but I'm glad they paid. Yeah.
Okay, away from domestic policy, what is your feeling about what we should be doing in the Middle East and Afghanistan?
I signed a pledge to end the forever wars. I just don't think we should be in a constant state of armed conflict for 2 decades. I don't think that's what the American people want. It's not what the Constitution says. I also don't want to pull the rug out from under our allies, and people that we build relationships with. Just like many of you, I was heartbroken when Donald Trump pulled us out of Syria so abruptly, and then the reality on the ground shifted very, very quickly as a result. Like, that to me is the wrong way to go. There was James Mattis who said if we spend less on our diplomats, we have to spend more on ammunition. So to me, it's obvious we spend more on our diplomats, rebuild trust and relationships around the world, stick to our commitments, and then try and spend less on ammunition. To me, our foreign policy reflects how we're doing here at home. The order of events was we fell apart here at home. We voted Donald Trump into office. Donald Trump went around breaking relationships and having this erratic and unreliable foreign policy. So to reverse this, we have to get stronger and more whole here at home, and then be able to project a reliable and steady foreign policy for years to come with our partners. But it's not possible if we don't become stronger and more whole here first.
Real quick, I just talked to the traveling team. I know you gotta hit the road for real by about 12:40.
For real?
For real, like not the like politician, like the for real time. So, and I wanna make sure you have a few minutes to, whether it's
Take
a
pictures, sign
picture,
books, whatever you guys
autograph,
want.
quick personal, one-on-one question. And that's 20 minutes from now. So if somebody has like a really quick, I saw Paul, your hand up. I just don't want you to not have that
Paul
chance.
deserves it.
Go for it. Last question, Paul.
And
There
then
we
we'll
go.
take some pictures.
One of the things that I think has really wrecked our politics was the Supreme Court decision on allowing corporations to.
Citizens United is the worst.
Citizens United. What can you do about that?
All right, I would repeal Citizens United immediately if we had that power, but the fact is you have to have a super majority to repeal it. I still want to repeal it, don't get me wrong. But fundamentally, our government was corrupt before Citizens United, where we had corporate cash just overrunning the system. It's worse now, so this Supreme Court case was a step in the wrong direction. Bigger picture, how do we solve a problem with the fact that government does not work for us? I've been running for president, and I have some direct experience now, where you have the people on this side and the money on this side. And then you start paying more attention to the money, because it's easier to keep track of, there are fewer people, it's better. Like, you just end up getting attracted to the money over time, and then the people become secondary. It's one reason I'm so grateful to the Yang Gang and the folks supporting this campaign, where we have over 300,000 donors who donated $30 each. You know, that's how you get to $10 million really quickly. So I can just pay attention to the people. So that's what we have to do for our entire government. Now, how the heck do you do that? Here's how we do it. Repeal Citizens United, yes, but then you flood the system with people-powered money. You wash out the lobbyist cash by a factor of 8 to 1. And the way we do this is we give every American citizen 100 democracy dollars that you can use for any candidate or campaign that you see fit. And then if I'm a politician and I get 10,000 of you behind me, that's $1 million. And then when the lobbyist comes and says, hey, I've got $50,000 for you, you're like, I don't care about your money, because if I get the people behind me, I get $1 million. And then you combine that with term limits, and all of a sudden you have a government that works for us again. You have to unify the people and the money. And it's very straightforward to do, just by giving us 100 democracy dollars, use it or lose it every year. If you don't use it that year, fine, you get another set the next year. And then it fundamentally changes lawmakers' incentives forever. So that is the plan. As you can tell, I've got plans for a lot of things. They're all a set of interrelated problems that are breaking us. But a lot of it is by returning power to the people. Through democracy dollars that would change the incentives,
So do you
through our
think this would
economic power.
increase the percentage of people who vote?
It would. I believe it would. Because right now, a lot of people, again, look up and say, my vote doesn't matter, I'm not a real participant. But this way, you're all of a sudden, you're like, wow, I really am a participant. I get these $100, I have to decide what to do with them. And that immediately will make you a stakeholder. No problem. Thank you all very much. Let's take this together. Thank you. Hopefully I have some books. I'm happy to sign them for you, if you have an interest. But yeah, we can do it. Yeah, do it.
Yang gang, there you have it. That was a great Q&A session. Wow, he answered a lot of questions. And as he always does, every answer was succinct and beautiful, and he is a once-in-a-lifetime candidate, y'all. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of this live stream. We got to get outside the Yang gang. We got to talk to people who are of different ideologies than us, because we all came from somewhere else, y'all. We all came from a different group. We all came from backing different politicians, and we're all here with Yang now. So we've got to get outside of our sound bubble. We can't be complacent. We got to keep fighting, y'all. If we don't get him through the primaries, nothing else matters. Yang people every day. Yang. No. Have you read some of these comments? Y'all are crazy out there.
I've been reading the
Yang
comments the whole time.
Y'all are crazy. We love you, Yang gang. We're probably gonna get off of here in this live stream. Love you. See you on the next one. Give it one last shot of Andrew.
She does more than I do.
I don't want
Slid it. Yeah, it's still going. I'm gonna just letting people get in a few last comments. We love you, Yang gang. There will be no more events for today. As y'all heard, Andrew is going on, I think, to Boston or something. We will see you on the next one, Yang gang. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. Our donation links are in, somebody was asking about that. Our donation links are in all the other videos, and they'll be on this one as soon as I end the live stream. So if y'all care to donate that way, y'all, we got to get Andrew up to 1.5 million by October 31st. That's in a couple days. Let's make it happen, Yang gang. You can believe it. My butt's going to go there and donate some more. Buy some more merch. We love you, Yang gang.